it's finally happening. We're finally getting to see Wonder Woman 1984. Although, unfortunately, in our case, it's going to be on streaming on Christmas Day. But what better way to look back than to do a review of Wonder Woman from 2017? So I think with Wonder Woman, you got to look at the cast. And, I mean, where it pretty much starts and ends with Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I mean, she is such an iconic version of that character.
She really saved Batman versus Superman for me at one point.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, whenever she was cast, it was a little bit of like, first of all, who? But I think it's another great example of, don't judge something based on the casting, because, like Michael Keaton, Heath Ledger, Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, you're more than likely going to get proven wrong in a lot of instances. I mean, she just has that warmth. Of course, she's very beautiful, but I mean, she has that warmth, that athletic kind of prowess. She's definitely kind of muscled up. I remember she was very skinny whenever she started off. I mean, she's kind of, muscled up a little bit. But I mean, she's got all the great traits that, I think Wonder Woman should have.
Yeah, she's very cool. And I also love her accent.
Yeah, she's cool.
Which works really well for Diana, incidentally.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it kind of covers that whole, because she's Israeli, but, it's kind of this...
she knows all of these languages, and so it's almost like her accent is just kind of a result of knowing so much. Absolutely.
So, but, she is so spectacular. And in this film, I mean, she really has a chance to stretch out and, I mean, really own the role. And, it's amazing. People, when she was cast, she was like, who? But now, can you imagine anyone else other than Wonder Woman, other than her as Woman? Yeah.
She's so cool.
Yeah. But, I mean, she does great in this film. Chris Pine as Steve Trevor. He is so likable in this movie.
I've had a crush on Chris Pine since like 2004 when he was in The Princess Diaries too. So, recognized.
And I'm really impressed. Like, you see some on-screen couples and there's not a whole lot of chemistry. With Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, it's just flying off the screen. I mean, it's clear from like the beginning that they have, a really special bond.
Yeah, they seem to think a lot of each other, so it works out nicely.
Absolutely. And then, of course, I mean, the supporting cast is really great, and the characters are really great. Of course, Robin Wright is Antiope,
Princess Bride,
Princess Buttercup, right? And Connie Nielsen as Hippolyta. All the Amazons, when you're on Themyscira, it's just very, they're very, I don't know, they're just very awesome.
They're very diverse in the best way, because, I mean, yes, they're Amazons, they all have to be tall and fit, but, I mean, other than that, they have very little in common. I mean, you've got women of all different colors, different ages, different looks, and it just works, and they're fantastic. And it was nice to see some older women playing significant roles where they were not airbrushed to death.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, I don't know, that Themyscira, I would love to see more of it. Of course, we're going to see, as we saw it in Justice League, we saw some more of Themyscira, but we're definitely going to see we're going to see it go a little bit deeper, probably with the Zack Snyder, the actual Snyder cut there. And then also, we know that's going to dive a little bit deeper into Wonder Woman 1984, so I'm really interested to see more of that. But also on the female side, Lucy Davis is Etta Candy. She is really cool.
I hope I guess she can't pop up more, but I felt like she was a little bit underused almost, because she was a lot of fun on screen.
Yeah, she was a lot of great fun. She was fantastic. Also, we have to kind of take a look, of course, I forget the actors' names on it, but, the actors that played Charlie and Samir and the Chief, kind of like, Team Wonder Woman. They're just a lot of fun, and they're great kind of character kind of actors.
And I think it's cool because they also represent kind of this group of misfits that had nowhere else to go and chose, rather than doing nothing, to do something, which is one of the things that Steve Trevor talks about toward the beginning, is that he had to make a choice, and that was the choice he made. So
yeah, exactly. And then we kind of flip over and we talk about like the villains, we talk about the actual, I feel like there's in this movie, spoiler alert, I don't want to, anybody who hasn't seen the movie, but there's definitely the mustache twirling kind of villains, and then there's the real kind of lurking beneath the surface that you don't really see pop up until the very end of the film. But of course, the mustache twirlers, as I like to kind of refer to them, is of course Dr. Poison and Ludendorff, and they're very unlikable in the worst way.
Isn't Ludendorff the guy that played Stryker in some of the X-Men films?
Yeah, Danny Houston. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I swear everything I see him in, he's not nice.
Yeah, he definitely plays this pompous, arrogant, like
military dude.
Yeah, military dude. Yeah, he's always the military dude. That's exactly right.
And her with that half mask thing on. Like, first of all, that was a really cool costume piece.
Yeah, that was great.
It was, you could actually hear it like clack when she talked sometimes. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really a neat touch. And then you finally get to see why she has it, toward the end of the movie. But
yeah, like they're both just, it's just like, how can we inflict as much damage on people as possible? And it's just like, they're not likable. Like when, especially when Ludendorff kind of gets his, you're not upset at all. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think, and this, because I wanted to save this for last because we really wanted to kind of discuss it a little bit, because I feel like it's a little bit of a controversial statement, and I hate to say this because everything else I've seen this actor in, he's so amazing, but David Thewlis as Ares, as Sir Patrick, I think is his name. But yeah, we like him so much, especially as Lupin in Harry Potter. Ron
Weasley's butter.
Absolutely. We like him so much in that, but here, and you really like him up to a certain point in this, and then you realize that he's Ares, but I am kind of okay with him being Ares. I know you kind of had some weird thoughts about it. Well, not weird thoughts, but just different thoughts.
It doesn't bother me up until the big battle, and I feel like in the big battle, like, it's just hard to buy him as this god of war, because he looks so non-threatening. So it almost would have made more sense to me had he actually physically transformed into what you would think of as the god of war. And maybe that's part of the point of it, is that he's not what he seems, I guess. But, it's hard to swallow a little bit during that part. It's a little easier once he puts his armor on, but even then it's still him underneath it. So I don't know. It's a little weird for me.
Yeah, and of course we see different versions, like, especially, the Justice League animated series, where Ares has like long black hair and he's this big dude, and and it's definitely a different visual than what you're kind of used to. I haven't gone back in Wonder Woman comics and stuff to really know like how they typically portray Ares very much, so I'm not even going to pretend to know anything on that end of it. But yeah, it is definitely different, and I think we've kind of talked in general, that last kind of part of that film is, and we'll get into that a little bit more here, is definitely probably the weakest part of the film overall, and I think that kind of that's part of it.
Yeah, I think so. So one thing that I unexpectedly fell in love with in this movie was the score and the main Wonder Woman theme by Tina Guo, which is so killer. Mm-hmm. I mean, going back to Batman vs. Superman, when she shows up and that theme hits, I mean, it's like saving the movie for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we both had that moment where, and I like Batman v Superman more than you do, but I mean, yeah, that moment when she comes down and she blocks, and she basically saved Batman's life, and then that theme kicks in, it's like, oh boy, here we go.
And then in this, of course, the first time you really get it is, right after her like no man's land crossing, when she gets to the village of Veld, wasn't it?
I think so.
And she's like leaps through this window to take out all these bad guys. She leaps and she hits the floor, and then the theme hits, and it's so good. Mm-hmm. If you haven't ever looked up anything else that Tina Guo has done, she's phenomenal.
Great cellist, yeah.
Yes, her specialty is cello metal, but she's also done a couple of specific albums. One called Game On, that is a bunch of really cool video game themes on cello, and then the other one is greatest movie themes.
Hollywood's greatest, something like that, yeah.
But it's a lot of, iconic themes that she's playing, that she's, arranged for cello. So they're really phenomenal. She's excellent.
Yeah, and she's also got we're getting up on the Christmas season. She's also got a great Christmas album as well. Very traditional kind of sounding, classical kind of Christmas album. It's really good.
But typically half the time when you hear her, I don't even think it sounds like a cello. I mean, like, if you're not used to a cello, I think that's not what you're expecting.
Yeah, she does like a lot of electric cello work. As a matter of fact, this theme, she's kind of playing electric cello on that, and she just kills it. She's fantastic. we always like to get the bad out of the way before we talk about what we really love. So, really on this, I feel like they're kind of minor quibbles, but I figured we'd just kind of touch on it. And this is one that I didn't even notice. Like literally, like we're just before we shoot this film, I just kind of go, "Do you have anything?" Because I didn't think we had anything. She's like, "Well, yeah, I got this one thing," and I was like, "Okay, let's go. Let's talk about it."
So this actually bothers me across this film and Aquaman for female characters. But if you look, Diana, the entire time when she's in her Wonder Woman outfit, like her battle armor, not just her pretty clothes, when she's in her battle armor, she's wearing wedges, like heels with her armor. I mean, they're like nicely hidden into her boots and everything, but still, she's walking around on heels. And I don't know what the purpose of this was. But they also do it to Mera and Aquaman, who's in the water for half the time. So what was the point of that? So, I'm sorry. Those things bother me. Like, no practical woman who's going to be battling is going to run out in the middle of no man's land in wedges. I'm sorry. I don't buy that.
And again, I don't have any thoughts on it because I literally, like, I guess I'm just completely oblivious. And
he wasn't looking at her feet.
Come on. Like, okay, first of all, it's Gal Gadot.
I wasn't faulting you. I was just pointing it out.
Okay, so now we start with the stuff we love because that's the fun stuff. And honestly, like we were looking at this, we started talking about like moments, and the more that we started like going through this, the more we were like, oh wait, no, this is actually like entire like huge scenes and chunks of the movie. So I think that shows the strength of this film overall. But the first thing that really stands out to me is the whole story that Hippolyta tells young Diana of how the gods basically came to not be anymore.
Yeah, I thought it was really beautiful the way they made it. Almost looked like a Sistine Chapel Michelangelo painting that was just slightly animated. Mm-hmm. So they all had that painted look, but then they also moved a little bit. It was just a very cool effect.
Yeah, and I think it does a really good job of kind of explaining why Hippolyta doesn't want Diana to become a soldier or to learn how to fight, because and really is trying to tamp down how much Diana wants to learn how to fight. But it really does a good job of kind of, you really get the whole backstory and it all fills in really nicely, and it doesn't take that long either. Mm-mm. Yeah. Another one that we love is when, that whole sequence, like I said, it's this whole big long scene, but basically, we finally get our first shot of Gal Gadot as Diana. She's a little bit, it's like, of course, they're training with, she's training with Antiope, and basically Antiope, really pushes her to the point to where, she does the block for the first time, and it sends all that stuff out and knocks Antiope out, and it's this big whole deal. And so she's really not understanding what her powers, she didn't really realize she has powers at this point. And then that all goes right into the, Steve Trevor's plane crashing, and then the Germans following him, and then that whole battle sequence. It's just, like I said, it's a whole big long sequence, but it's just knockout.
Well, and I always appreciate, because Hippolyta tries so hard. She explains to her that there is a god killer, but she allows Diana to misunderstand and think that it's a sword and not herself. Mm-hmm. So that she thinks someone just has to wield the sword, not that someone is the god killer. Mm-hmm. And so she, as she's going through all of this and she decides to go off with Steve and go get the armor and all of that, she's concerned about getting the sword, not realizing it's just her that she needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like it's like, Diana, she's just been completely innocent this whole time. She's grown up in like this society that there's no war, there's no issues, and she just gets to grow up with, just basically in a world full of love, really. And then, sorry to say it, but man comes in. Steve Trevor comes in, followed by the Germans, and there's a battle right there on the beach. Amazons die, Germans die, including Antiope. She ends up, getting shot and killed. And that's really the first time that she's brought into, a more violent world.
Mm-hmm. And with Antiope's dying breath, she's trying to tell Diana that she's the god killer, and she just can't get out enough words before she passes. Mm-hmm. So that was a really heart-wrenching moment. But going to something a little bit lighter, I also always appreciate the light humor that they throw in between Diana and Steve.
Oh, yeah.
Especially there right in the beginning when they're just meeting. because of course she walks on him naked getting out of the bath, and she doesn't have a hang up about being nude like he does.
Yeah.
And so, you know, she's just kind of staring at him, talking to him, and she asks, what is that? And he thinks that she's talking about something other than what she is, which is his watch.
Because we were all thinking that she was talking about his watch.
Mm-hmm. And then of course he gets on a string of questions like, you know, what is this place? Who are you people? And why does the water do that?
Yeah.
So I love that chemistry, the kind of fun, light moments that they get to have throughout what can be in a lot of spots a really serious movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, kind of talking about that light kind of feeling, like her arrival in London is just great. I mean, all of it. I mean, like when she first like shows up and they're like walking, and first of all she tries to hold his hand because that's what she sees other people doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then she like goes up to the baby. Oh, the baby! And then of course her meeting Etta Candy and then trying on all those outfits. That's always a great moment.
Yes, I love when she's trying to think, how do women fight in these things? And she like rips the dress, and
yeah,
and Etta Candy's like, okay.
And I love like at the end of it, you know, like she's in these nice clothes and she's still carrying the sword and the shield.
Oh, and I love the little moment because to me it's such a nod to Superman, but she's like in her final outfit, and Steve Trevor comes walking in, and he's like, you're supposed to make her look less conspicuous. So he puts glasses on her, and Etta Candy's like, really, Specs? And she's not the most gorgeous woman you've ever seen.
Absolutely. And like another nod to Superman, like right after that scene, of course, they go down the dark alley, just like in Superman, the 1978 film. And instead of it being, you know, Superman that, you know, saves the day and catches the bullet, you know, as Clark Kent, this time it's Diana that does it. Because I love that scene where he's like, where Steve Trevor's like trying to like, you know, protect her, and then all of a sudden she blocks it, and he goes, or maybe not.
Yeah.
And then she just proceeds to kick the crap out of him. So spectacular. I feel like we're going through the whole film here, but it's literally, like I said, it's long blocks that I just love. And I mean, it really comes down to this scene next, because I mean, this scene is the scene in the movie. It's the iconic scene, No Man's Land. I mean, it's just spectacular in the way that, like, this is really like the first time that we see her in the film in full, like Wonder Woman. Like you've seen like her with like a black cloak over her over the Wonder Woman outfit throughout the most of the film, and then that's the moment when she's just fully out and on No Man's Land. And that whole sequence, you know, they go through that part, then they go to the what was the town? Yeah, to that town, and you know, they take out all the army there. I mean, that whole sequence there is just knockout.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because I think it's such a character establishing moment for her, because it shows so clearly that she is concerned about other people. Her mission in that moment is not to save herself or to keep doing this one focused thing that she's been working on. It is to help these people in this moment.
Yeah, she's not exactly. I mean, that nails it perfectly. I mean, and it's almost innocent, like completely innocent and naive. It's like in that moment, because she's really compelled by, you know, an older woman that she's talking to in the trenches right there. And I think it's been a lead up to everything, because she's like, she sees like a horse stuck in the mud, like, oh, I've got to go help. And they're like, no, you've got to go do this. And like, she eventually reaches, by the time she talks to that old woman, she's had enough. Like, she's going to do something. And you know, I love that line, where he's like, you know, we've got to do this, and no, but this is what I'm going to do. And then she goes up, and then it starts off. But I mean, oh, it's so spectacular.
I love the moment they realize she's taking all the fire and not getting hurt, and then they just run out after. It's so cool.
Yeah, she's so inspiring in that moment. And, you know, the amazing thing is, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I've read several things that says that they tried to pressure Patty Jenkins to take that scene out of the movie. It's like, are you kidding me?
That scene is the movie.
That is probably the greatest scene in a DC film since the Batman Joker interrogation in The Dark Knight. I mean, it is so iconic and so, I mean, you talk about a scene that fully encapsulates a character in about a, 3 to 4 minute span. It's what does it. And if that were the only scene, that would be enough. Mm-hmm. But I mean, but it is definitely the best one. But also, you know, the battle with Ludendorff, that's another kind of cool one. It's like there's been this kind of build up to this moment, and you feel like this is kind of, she's very certain that it's Ares, and she's taking out Ares whenever it does that. It does kind of feel it a bit too easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I think they set him up so beautifully as a red herring. Him being working so closely with Dr. Poison and being very destructive and setting up that one like group of men that was in a meeting to die and throwing in the mask that they know isn't going to work, and her giving him that gas that he like snaps under his nose and breathes it in, and it like empowers him and all of this stuff. I mean, it's beautifully woven so that when you get to that point and she just kills him and nothing happens, you're like, wait.
It's like that was a little too easy. Like when she drives the sword through him, I'm like, well, that was easy. And it's like, I don't know. But I mean, that was really cool. But then of course it ends up being Sir Patrick, and of course played by Remus Lupin himself, and which is great because I mean he is so lovable as Lupin in the Harry Potter films, and comes across as so likable in this film up until the reveal that he is actually Ares.
Because I mean, he sends them on their mission with the money, what they need,
and so I thought it was very well done as far as that goes. I think I have the issue with just how it went from like a war epic to a demigod god fight that's just full of CGI and huge explosions and everything like that.
I think something gets lost in transition there. It's almost like, because there's such a small gap of time between the time she kills Ludendorff and then Sir Patrick reveals himself as Ares, that it's like you didn't have time to readjust your expectations, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. But one thing, though, I mean, that definitely ties that whole ending scene that kind of keeps it moving along is Steve Trevor's sacrifice, and which apparently is not going to happen in Wonder Woman 1984. I'm still very curious how they're going to make that all work out. Fully trust Patty Jenkins and company to tell a good story with that. But I mean, just the scene alone where they set it up. I mean, they set it up so beautifully. Like obviously, like Diana's been like, there's a huge explosion, so her hearing's kind of all whacked out, and Steve Trevor's trying to tell her something, and like leaves his watch. But you really don't get in that initial part what's going on, and then
it's not till she's getting squeezed by that like metal that Ares has her.
He's got her kind of trapped, and so then he goes off and he sacrifices himself to get that plane full of all that gas, blows it up, and then like in the middle of all that, she remembers that whole second part where you actually hear what he was telling her, and saying like, you can save the world, I can save today, and hands her the watch, I wish we had more time, and then says I love you. Like, it still gets me right here to this day. I mean, it's so well done and it's so emotional.
It is. It's such a sweet moment, and it's what ultimately kind of gives her the fire that she needs to get up again.
And she realizes that, Ares has got this horrible opinion of man, and honestly, we may deserve quite a fair bit of it. But there's also a lot of good there too, and so that's what she chooses to remember, and that's what gives her power to defeat.
Because she comes back to Steve's line from earlier in the film, which was, it's not about deserve, it's about what you believe.
Absolutely. And so for myself, looking at this film, I know going into it, I think you kind of have to remember where, Batman v Superman was a very controversial film. I love that film. I know you maybe like it, don't love it kind of thing. Maybe kind of thing.
It requires too much commentary for me to understand parts of it, which bothers me.
Absolutely. And then you had Suicide Squad, which again did well at the box office, and but I would acknowledge like there's definitely some weaknesses there with Suicide Squad. So I feel like Wonder Woman was the first time that I guess within the DCEU that they actually got it, and they really delivered a just wonderful film. Does it have its weaknesses? Yeah, honestly, there's not that many of them though. I mean, there's things we can kind of pick apart here and there, but it's still a wonderful film. It's one that I feel like I can go back to time and time again. I love watching it with our daughter. I love that our daughter grows up in a world where there's a Wonder Woman film finally. Why did it take this long? I mean, really, we didn't think this wasn't going to be a success when it came out? Come on. I mean, it's wonderful. I love Gal Gadot in the role. I love, Chris Pine and Steve Trevor. And, I think it's actually one of the better comic book movies of the last several years.
It's awesome. It's great. My quibbles with it are minor. But for the love of all that is holy, please stop putting women in action in heels. Thank you very much. Love, Michelle. All right, so that's it for our review. Please let us know in the comments what you thought about Wonder Woman and give us suggestions. What do you want us to review next? What do you want to see? If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications whenever we post a new video. If you want to talk to us in between videos, please find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at D's Nerds. And that's all we've got for tonight. So have a great, safe rest of the day.
Bye.